You can now listen to the rarest, most expensive Wu-Tang Clan album, but more on that in just a second. This episode, we're also going to be looking at how John Lennon's guitar smashed auction records, how to stay overnight in a world-famous museum, and ancient Roman correspondence that was found in a pet cemetery. Welcome back to By Amara, the show where we look at some of the weird, strange, and just downright odd things that have happened in the art and history fields. I'm your host and personal curator, Amara Andrew. So as you can tell, this is already going to be a very music-heavy episode, which I am super on board with, so I guess it's only 2 stories. But still, that's half of the show is going to be music-heavy, which I'm very excited for. Personally, I'm not a John Lennon fan, just as a human. I like the music. But then Wu-Tang Clan, I'm very excited for this story. It is so fucking cool. I cannot wait. It is going to be the last story, so haha, you have to skip ahead and listen to it. Anywho, this is the part of the show called Updates, where normally I give you updates on stories. I have none. So instead, I'm just going to shout in your ear. So anywho, welcome back to the show. I don't really have any personal life updates also. It's been a very boring week, which is actually good for me because in my business, we are traveling literally every single week. We do videography with realtors primarily, and we actually travel to the person. So, wearing the shirt, didn't even realize. But we are just always going. So it's a little chaotic at times. This is the first stretch of time since maybe December or January where we've actually been at home for more than a week, which sounds crazy, but it actually is. And it's been very nice. We have a lot of new exciting things coming up for Maven too. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. You don't give a shit and that's fine. Like I said, pretty boring week. It's just been work, but it's actually been like really exciting work. So that is just very fun. I don't know. It's like getting systems in place and I love systems. So it's just like, both my boyfriend and I do. So we're just like, I don't know. It's very fun. He's actually taking photos of me right now shirtless and it's a little distracting. I'm not shirtless. Clearly he is. So say hi, Jeff.
Hi.
There he is. Sounds like David Beckham. Anywho, I should probably just get straight into the show. Oh, do you have cicadas where you are also? Because there's so many fucking cicadas where we are. We're just outside Chicago and there are just cicadas everywhere. And this is the one time of year where I can actually be outside and enjoy it. And I can't be outside and enjoy it because the cicadas are just everywhere. Like, I wonder if you could actually hear them right now because they're so fucking loud. And where we live, there are tons and tons of trees. So it's just like, it's deafening sometimes outside. But there's cicadas everywhere. And I think because my hair is light, the cicadas love running into my head specifically. And I don't know why. They run directly here and like right on the sides, like never really on the back or like anywhere else. It's purely just like these 2 spots. And then sometimes they'll land on me. I don't know. And like Jeff doesn't have this problem. He also has long hair. We have like the same length hair. So I was like, well, maybe it's the hair. And then I was like, well, no, they're not landing on him. So maybe they just sense my fear. We were joking that they sense my fear and that they're trying to be like, hey, it's okay. Like, look, I want to give you a kiss or something. And I'm just like, So yeah, I cannot enjoy it because it just freaks me out. One of my clients we were filming with actually on Friday, I love her to death, but she's a fucking freak in the best way possible. And I had a cicada land on my fucking head while we were recording. And she just goes, oh, and just like grabs it and was like patting it. I was like, what is wrong with you? Actually, Jeff posted a photo to my Instagram, like collab, whatever. But you can actually see the fear on my face and it is quite funny. So anyway, check that out. So cicadas are out of control here. I don't like them. I wish they would leave. I'm going to get like a little mesh pop-up tent so I can actually sit outside just because I don't want them landing on me. Like they don't do anything, but it just bothers me because they're big and then they get like trapped in my hair too. And it just like, it's not nice. Like I just don't enjoy it. Again, they're not going to fucking do anything. They're just like pure innocent little ground dwellers, but that was my nickname in high school. But they're just big and it just like freaks me out. And like they make that clicking sound. Anyway, so are the cicadas out of control where you live? Anyway, let's just get to the show. Allegedly, the most historically important Beatles guitar, according to Julian's Auctions, which is going to be playing a very pivotal role in this story, the guitar was auctioned off this month after missing for 50 years. 50 years. Pretty long time. So the Framus, I heard Framus and Framus before, so I'm just going to say Framus because it's a German company, so it should actually be pronounced a little bit differently, but whatever. Framus Hootenanny, which I fucking love, once owned by John Lennon, was featured on many of the band's hit songs and also appeared in the movie Help. You can hear the guitar in You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, which that song's been stuck in my head ever since I read this story. It's Only Love, I've Just Seen a Face, and Help. Shocking. The instrument was expected to fetch between $600,000 and $800,000 at the 2-day Music Icons auction, but the auction house believed that the guitar itself could actually fetch a much higher sum. I am just tripping over my words today. It's all these cicadas. They're freaking me out. But the auction house thought, hey, I think we could actually get a lot more for this. The previous record that was held was Lennon, a guitar actually that was owned by John Lennon at one point. And it sold for $2.41 million. And it was his J160E Gibson. Held that spot until now. But more on that in a minute, actually. Let's talk a little bit more about this little guitar. So the instrument was actually part of a 2-day auction through Julian's auction called Music Icons. And it was a huge sale, tons and tons of memorabilia. There were like outfits, there were different random books and photographs and guitars, a shit ton of guitars. The top selling things, actually, which we'll talk about a little bit later, the top selling merchandise, though, were primarily guitars. But I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But at the auction, the John Lennon guitar was the Hootenanny was expected to fetch between $600,000 and $800,000 at the auction. And the auction house, though, they actually believed that they could fetch a higher sum for this guitar. The current at the time record was John Lennon's $2.41 million guitar, his J160E Gibson. That held the spot of the record price for a Beatles guitar until now. But more on that in a second. Let's talk about this little Hootenanny. The Hootenanny, I love that word. I use it all the time in many circumstances, which it just doesn't make sense, but I find it fun. The guitar was made by German firm Framus in the early 1960s and was acquired by Lennon in late 1964. He then debuted it in 1965, during their Help recording sessions. Additionally, George Harrison played it for the rhythm guitar part on Norwegian Wood, fun fact. And like I mentioned before, it's in the movie Help, so she's a superstar. It is a superstar. I keep wanting to say that it's a she. I don't know why. She gives me feminine energy. So by the mid to late 60s then, I love the provenance of things. So this just gets me really jazzed when there actually is provenance. So anyway, so Lennon owned it. Then by the mid to late 60s, the guitar made its way to Gordon Waller of Peter and Gordon. And then he gave the guitar to his road managers, where then it just disappeared. Nobody knew where it went because obviously, too, the road managers aren't like celebrities or anything. So it was just like, especially at that time. So then it just disappeared for 50 years. So the current, well, I guess not current now, but the current at the time that the guitar was found, homeowners of this house in the English countryside, they found this guitar in their attic. So then they contacted Julian's, which is an auction house in LA. The auctioneers at Julian's then traveled to the UK to go look at the guitar, and they actually were joined with a couple Beatles historians just to obviously make sure, like, hey, is this actually the correct guitar? And apparently it was, so everybody agreed. Additionally, the original guitar case, too, was found in the home as well, which is pretty fucking sweet. It also apparently, quote, still looks and plays like a dream after having been preserved in an attic for more than 50 years, end quote, according to the auction house. I was wondering how it would sound and what, like, kind of the condition would be, especially hearing it's in an attic. It's kind of like, oh, I don't know how the, like, wood would be preserved and everything, especially in the UK. You just, I don't know. You never know. So, anywho, back to the auction. You're probably dying to know how much it sold for, and I'm not going to tell you. Just kidding. I will in like 2 seconds. So the auction itself took place in person at the Hard Rock Cafe in New York, which I thought was very amusing. I know nothing about the Hard Rock Cafe in New York, but it's very funny because my brother actually has a thing for the Hard Rock Cafe, and very weird. It's a very weird thing. When we were in Rome all together a couple months ago, it was like, oh, look, you should go there. Anyway, total fucking side tangent. So the auction was held in person at the Hard Rock Cafe in New York, as well as online, May 29th and May 30th of this year, 2024. And the guitar itself sold for a record $2.86 million, smashing the previous record of $2.41 million for the Gibson that I told you about earlier. So it totally obliterated that record, and it also obliterated the expectations of what it was going to sell for, which was $600,000 to $800,000. So knock that shit out of the fucking park, which is amazing. The first day of the Music Icons auction also was astronomical. It actually beat everybody's expectations of what it was going to actually go for, especially because auctions lately have actually been a little bit lower. I guess I'm primarily talking about the art market, but this was really fascinating. Anyway, so the first day pulled in $6 million in sales, nearly 3 times what the auction house had actually anticipated, which is nuts. I don't know what the second day pulled in just because I don't think those numbers are ready yet as of this recording. And nearly all lots sold. I think I saw it was like 98.6% or something like that of the lots actually sold, which is incredible. Like, that is just amazing. Only a few things didn't sell from what I saw. I was trying to look through to see. I think one of Johnny Cash's coats didn't sell. A couple clothing items didn't sell, which I thought was interesting. There was a lot of, what was it? Like Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana clothing too, which was really weird. But I don't know. You do you, I guess. I'm not going to judge what you want to collect. I teased before what the other high ticket items were, and it was basically all guitars for like the top 6 or 7 spots. So the other 2 highest ticket items, so we have John Lennon's guitar, the Hootenanny at $2.86 million. Then the next highest ticket item was Prince's yellow Cloud 3 guitar. It is beautiful. I don't really like yellow, but it is a gorgeous, super fucking cool looking guitar. The guitar, I think it also had like books and photographs and things with it. That sold for over $900,000. I think it was $910,000 to be exact. And then the third place went to a 1965 Fender Telecaster that was owned by Robbie Robertson of the band. And then it was also played by Bob Dylan in his like electric guitar phase. So that's why it's super notable, obviously. So yeah, I just thought that was pretty cool. So Lennon's guitars just keep smashing records, smashing Beatles records and all that fun, wonderful stuff. So on to our next story. You can stay overnight in one of the most iconic museums in the world. Isn't this every fucking art nerd's dream? Like, I have long thought about locking myself when I worked at the Art Institute. I really wanted to just Chicago. I wanted to just lock myself in the museum and just like, not even to touch anything, but just look at everything. Like, when you're by yourself, you can be so much more focused on things, I find, versus like in a crowd of people. So I don't know. I just always wanted to just like lock myself in there and just be like, oh my God. So anyway, when I saw this, I was just like, I have to do this at some point in my lifetime. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't even know what the fuck that means or what museum I would pick, but genuinely, I would love to do this. So anyway, you could actually do this. Well, I hate to spoil it, but it is actually closed right now, but there are other opportunities. So let me just tell you what the hell I'm talking about. In partnership with Airbnb, there's a new series called Icons. For this specific one, you can actually enter a raffle for you and a guest, I think. It was like a little weird how they phrased it, but it sounded like it was you and a guest, or it said 2 people or whatever. So you and a guest. I think you can bring someone, unless it would be you and a random person, which would be so fucking weird. But I think it's you and a guest. You get to enter the raffle to spend a night at the Musée d'Orsay for the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris. I mean, that would be so fucking cool. Here's the kicker also. It's free. What? You just have to sell your soul, which that's fine. I don't have one, so I guess I wouldn't be able to join. Anyway, so this isn't, like I teased, this isn't the only cool thing that Airbnb is doing through their Icons thing, but I'll tell you more about that in a second. So anyway, the raffle includes an overnight stay for 1 night in the museum's famous clock quarters. And if you're listening to this, you have to look up what this even looks like because it is amazing. I love the design. I love the look of it. The fact that you're in the fucking clock face is so cool. Sorry, I'm swearing a lot in this episode, and a lot of people don't like it, but I don't care. But anyway, so it's such a cool room, and there's so many benefits to this too, which is really cool. So you'll be able to view the opening ceremony for the games from the museum's rooftop terrace that overlooks the Seine, where athletes will float downriver in boats during the July 26th kickoff event. That's so cool. And then you also get treated to a gourmet dinner of classic French cuisine, as well as a private tour of the museum's legendary Impressionist collection, which I would be fine with just the tour, honestly. But being able to say, I wonder if you need to like document it. I feel like I would want to record every single part of it. I don't know. There's a lot that would go through my mind. The listing too said that it was done by French designer Mathieu Lenoir, which sorry for mispronunciation. And he is the designer of the 2024 Olympic torch and relay cauldron, which is really cool. And like I said, the room is absolutely gorgeous. It's literally, okay, let me paint you a little word picture. Let me pull up my photos. So it is all wood paneled. It's like so it's just basically an arched room. The central focal point is the clock face at the end. And then you have the bed coming out, which is like a floating bed. You have these little like cloud shaped lights on either side of the bed. Everything's just like a beige kind of color, which I'm not really a beige person, but you do you. There's a leather punching bag off to the side and some dumbbells that look like they're more for aesthetic purposes versus actually working out. But I like the nod to physical activity for the Olympics. And the really cool thing too is that there's actually a replica of the Olympic torch for this year included in the room and like a little book, I guess, talking about the design and things like that. So it's a really, really, really cool space, but what are you going to do in there? If you're in Paris, I guess I would just be curious how you get in and out of it. Like, can you leave for the night after you have dinner? Can you go out and about? Or like, how does it all work? I don't know. I'm always not worried. I'm very curious about all the nitty gritty sort of things. Like, do you have a little key card that you can get through the museum or like, what do you do? Anyway, I'm just very curious. So like I said, unfortunately, the application closed on May 31st, which really sucks. But I wanted to tell you about this because there are going to be other opportunities in the future. I know for various different things, like there are a couple that I'll talk to you about too. There will probably be other things. So if you're curious about anything, you should definitely keep your eyes and ears and wallets open. I don't think you have to pay for any of them, or maybe a couple. I don't know. So anyway, I saw this a few weeks ago or maybe about a month ago on the Airbnb website because that's what I primarily use to stay for my business because it just does the whole thing. And I really wanted to apply for it, but what you had to do was write why you should be picked for it, which I was like, I don't fucking know. I think it's cool. And like, I could do my podcast from there. But then I was just like, I don't really think that would hold up because you had to like talk about your interest in art. And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm interested. Like, I love it. What can I say? I don't know. I'm not very good at writing and putting the energy into that. So whoever did, kudos to you. I'm very curious to see if anybody posts about it or if anybody can, because maybe you're not allowed to. So anyway, the application window, like I said, has already closed, but there are a ton of other experiences that you can be part of. So some that piqued my interest were staying in Carl Friedrichsen's balloon suspended home from Up, which I don't know. You can attend a VIP members only comedy show at a lounge with Kevin Hart, which I was like, that would be very fun. And then you could even design your very own incredible super suit with Edna Mode or whomever. So definitely check out the Airbnb website. There was also one with a Bollywood star. I forget who exactly, but there are just a lot of different things that they're trying, which kudos to them. It's a really interesting idea to kind of diversify what they're doing and everything. So anywho, go check that out. And if you're staying in the Musée d'Orsay, let me know how that goes. This is a super short story, but I just thought it was really interesting. The headline definitely got me. Of course, that's like the whole fucking point. Ancient Roman correspondence was found in an ancient pet cemetery in Egypt. So, ancient Romans, ancient Egypt. I love it. Put it together. What do we got? Letters and pets. Anyway, the handwritten letters date from about 1900 years ago and were found amongst the carefully constructed graves of over 200 beloved cats, dogs, and monkeys. Yes, I said monkeys, and those are actually very important, which we'll talk about at the very end of the story because it provides more context to this. So even though Rome controlled Egypt for centuries, very few Roman sites still actually exist in the area. So finding this was super fucking cool. Like just finding the site alone was really cool, but then also being able to find letters from people is very cool. You know that because I nerd out about letters all the time. The burial the burial ground. What? I can't say that. Oh my god. Burial. No. Burial. Okay. Cemetery, which dates back to the 1st and 2nd centuries, is located in Berenike, a Red Sea port in southern Egypt built by Roman Emperor Tiberius. The cemetery was first uncovered in 2011 by a Polish archaeologist named Marta Osypinska, apologies for mispronunciation, Her and her team have been excavating it ever since 2011 when they uncovered it. Amongst the burials of beloved animals, they also found ceramics, Roman coins, and of course these letters. So these were, it sounded like rolled fragments of papyrus. So I don't think it was entire full rolls of papyrus. And it's believed that these were actually located in a nearby office that was destroyed. And then these just kind of blew over to the cemetery, which is really interesting. And like I said, they were written on papyrus. Jesus. They were written on papyrus by military officers who commanded units of ancient Roman soldiers in Egypt. And some people that were listed in these letters were proposed Roman centurions, Hausus, Licinius, and Petronius. And the letters also included orders for preparing for soldiers' arrivals, amongst other things. I think one of them even talked about dromedaries or dromedarius or something like that, which would be like the Roman soldiers arriving on camel. That's kind of fun. So just to wrap up this story, like I teased, the monkeys are a huge part of it, of the findings, because they actually point to ancient Roman life in the area, because the monkeys were native to India. So then it's believed that these were actually brought, like taken from India to ancient Rome, or possibly just straight to Egypt, or whatever, however the transit went. And they were kept as pets by Romans because they were a very exotic animal. Just like long-haired cats and miniature dogs, these were elite pets. And you could tell too, because in the cemeteries, they actually were buried with little toys or like their own little pets or animal companions or something, and ceramics. So super brief story. I hope to know more about what's actually written on these letters, but so far it just seems like it's a bunch of military commandments, which makes sense that that's what it would be, because why would you waste time writing other things? So anywho, on to our final story, which I'm so fucking excited for. One of the rarest, most expensive Wu-Tang Clan albums is headed to a museum where they're hosting ticketed listening parties. And that's a very big deal because there's only one copy ever to exist of this album forever. Let's get into this because this is actually a very fascinating story. It's such a piece of art in so many different ways, but let's get into it. The Museum of Old and New Art on Tasmania has acquired this legendary album. Like I said, this is a single edition titled Once Upon a Time in Shaolin and was released in 2015. It is the 7th studio album of Wu-Tang Clan, and as I mentioned, only one physical copy of it exists, and there's no way to download it or stream it digitally, and this is obviously very much on purpose. Inspired by musical patronage during the European Renaissance, Wu-Tang Clan producer Silver Rings wanted to create Once Upon a Time as an art object, which I thought was so beautiful in so many different ways. But there's more. Obviously. So he wanted to create it as an art object, particularly because he felt that music wasn't being valued at this time. So like I said, it was made in 2015. It took years. I'll get to that in a second anyway. But he felt that the value of music had been cheapened by streaming and online piracy and wanted to return music to being held to the same value as fine art. They actually wrote on their website, quote, "The intrinsic value of music has been reduced to zero. Contemporary art is worth millions by virtue of its exclusivity. By adopting a 400-year-old Renaissance-style approach to music, offering it as a commissioned commodity and allowing it to take a similar trajectory from creation to exhibition to sale, we hope to inspire and intensify urgent debates about the future of music," end quote. And it is such a gorgeous piece. Like, I love the context behind it. I love the actual physical piece of it too. And they really did make a beautiful work of art, both the physical piece and presentation of all of it, as well as I'm sure the auditory component. I don't know. Obviously, I have not fucking heard it, and very few people on this planet have. I would love to, though. Oh my God. I would probably go to Tasmania, honestly, just to listen to it, but I digress. So anyway, the entire presentation is gorgeous. It is a super, super beautiful. I'm looking at a photo of it, and if you're listening to this, you should definitely look up a photo of it. Where the fuck is my photo? There it is. But it is a super, super beautiful silver, so it's a box, and it's not like a cigar box. It's a little bit bigger than that, seemingly, but it just looks like it's heavy silver. It has like a floral motif on the top. There's a big circle in the center of it, and it has the Wu-Tang emblem logo. Why can I not think of words right now? But it has the logo on the lid in that little circle bit. And it actually looks like it opens too. So there's a little key that goes inside, seemingly, that maybe you can lock and unlock it. And there are other things in it too. I couldn't really figure out what exactly was in it. So I saw a variety of different photos. So instead of sounding like an asshole, I'm just going to leave that part out. It sounds really cool though. It looks very cool though. So this album, as I kind of teased, it was recorded over 6 years from 2007 to 2013. And we're going to get into the history of it because the provenance of it is very interesting for where it is now and how it kind of got there. There also isn't a complete list of song titles, but you can find a partial list of working titles on Wikipedia if you're interested at all. So this is a 2 CD copy that was pressed in 2014. So like I said, it took from 2007 to 2013 for it to be recorded in secret. And then it was pressed in 2014 and was stored in a secured vault at the Royal Mansour Hotel in Marrakesh. It was then auctioned through the auction house Paddle 8 in 2015. And the auction house had previously sold works by artists like Jeff Koons and Damien Hirst, among many other artists. This is what's really fascinating. A legal agreement also accompanied the album, stating that it cannot be commercially exploited by the purchaser until 2103. So exactly, I think it was 88 years or something after it was auctioned off, although it can be released free or it can be played at listening parties, which is where we're getting to. We'll get there in a minute. We're getting there though. So the person who actually won this in the auction back in 2015, it was Martin Shkreli, which if you know who that is, he's the CEO of Turing Pharmaceuticals, who reportedly paid over $2 million for this actual piece from Wu-Tang. But he is noted as being one of the most hated people in America, primarily by me. He marked up the price of a critical medication for AIDS patients from less than $20 a dose to $750. So just to refresh your memory who that ass clown is, it is that person. He also stated in January 2016, he had considered destroying the record or, quote, installing it in some remote place so that people have to make a spiritual quest to listen, end quote. He's very much about trying to stir up as much drama around himself and as many headlines as possible, which he then also promised to release the album for free if Donald Trump won the 2016 presidential election, which we know did happen. So then in November, he streamed excerpts of the album online. And then in 2017, Shkreli attempted to sell the album on eBay with a winning bid of over $1 million. But he was incarcerated on an unrelated charge of fraud before he could actually complete the sale, so that did not happen. Could you imagine being that person also thinking that you purchased it and actually got it, and then it was like, oh, sorry, I went to jail. You can't have it. I would be so upset. So then in March 2018, he was convicted of fraud, and then a federal court seized his assets, including this famous record, Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. In July 2021, the U.S. Department of Justice sold it to NFT collectors Pleaser DAO for $4 million to cover Shkreli's debts, with the intention of Pleaser to make the album more widely accessible to the public, which I really love, which makes sense with their name. Which all brings me to right now, where the MoNA, the Museum of Old and New Art, is going to present the exclusive album in a series of very special listening experiences. So they've condensed the 2 CD album into a 30-minute listening experience that you can enjoy on a ticketed basis through the institution from June 15th to June 24th as part of their name-dropping exhibition. The exhibition also itself looks very interesting. I think it's like, this is super, super reductive of what it actually is, but it's like they're engaging with culture and kind of discussing why it's so intoxicating and why it's so exclusionary and what makes it so and divisive. I don't know. It looks like a very fascinating exhibition on its own, but then you have this component to it, which is really fascinating. So anyway, there are 2 time slots for each day, starting June 15th all the way to June 24th. They're at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. However, unfortunately, all the tickets are sold out currently. They do have a wait list on their website if you are interested in signing up for that, but I don't imagine anything is really going to come available because this is such a unique experience. I'm sure the wait list, it has to be fucking a million different names long. You got some competition. So anyway, If you are at all interested, you should just sign up for the waitlist on their website. I don't see why not. I actually did, just for funsies, so might be making a last-minute trip to Tasmania, just because, I don't know, it seems very interesting. But then it's also difficult because then I struggle with, am I participating in something that is what this exhibition is taught? I don't know. I overthink a lot of things. So anyway, if you're interested, go to their website, get on the waitlist, figure it out for yourself. That was this episode, this very chaotic episode of By Amara. I hope you have a great week. I hope you have a great time. I honestly don't know what the fucking follow-up was for that. But yeah, have a great week. I hope you stay creative and just be a lovely human. And I'm Amara Andrew. Andrew. Never stop creating. Who am I?